Festival. This year, there will be 200 films from over 14 countries screening the weekend of March 21st to the 24th of this year. I am your host, Emily DeSimone, and I am here with director and co-producer Kevin Nolte and director of photography and co-producer Sean Bell of the short documentary This Is Why We Train, The Secret Beach Patrol. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Do you want to give our live audience a tidbit about your film?
Yes, thank you so much, Emily, for having us. Our film started with the Secret Beach Patrol reaching out to us in, it was about 2021 in September or October, and they had footage. So they had footage of this guy surfing, and I don't want to spoil the movie, but he had an accident in the water, and the Beach Patrol responded. So we got linked up with them, yeah, in about the fall of 2021, and this documentary took about like 8 or 9 months to film, to shoot, and then a few months to edit. And a year or two later, we have a finished product, and it's called This Is Why We Train. It is a short; it's less than 20 minutes, but it is one of those, I believe, your jaw keeps kind of dropping as you're watching it.
Yeah, when the Secret Beach Patrol actually approached us originally, I think they because the movie has a lot of footage. I don't want to call it found footage, but essentially the surfer, he was wearing a GoPro the whole time, and then so basically we have all of the footage of the entire incident, and then we also were able to get our hands on some of the police body cam footage as well. So originally the Secret Beach Patrol approached us about doing kind of like a training video, almost like prep. Their new lifeguards on like, hey, this is like basically what a drowning looks like, and this is how like a kind of response goes down to get them prepared. And then Kevin, I believe, pitched them on like, hey, Kevin's actually this is his second documentary film, also his second one on surfing. So he pitched them on doing like more of a story, like let's interview people, let's tell the whole story around this incident.
That's really cool that you guys got involved. Could you maybe talk about, what your role was in this? Do you guys have a company? How did you guys come into play with this Beach Patrol?
Yeah, so actually, it's funny. Kevin got me into filmmaking. I never thought I'd do this. So like, him and a couple other my buddies, they went to Montclair State, and they got me into filmmaking. And then during the pandemic, Kevin and I decided to start kind of putting our own reel together to see if we can get like professional jobs. Kevin's a camera operator for MSG and also does wedding films. And then I was just a lighting guy in like the commercial industry up in New York. So we had started a company together and like had been doing all types of like branding content, and that's when we got approached.
Have you ever done anything like this before? I mean, I know you have it kind of listed as like a documentary, which it is, but I mean, is this like the first time that you've had everything basically handed to you?
For me, I did, like Sean was just saying, I've actually done a documentary that was surf related. It was called Ride the Wave. It was a feature, so it was 53 minutes long. A story about this guy named Scott Chesney from Verona, New Jersey, who in 1985, he was 15 years old, and he woke up just paralyzed from 6 inches above the belly button and down. And he met a group of guys who were training him how to surf. Scott wanted to become an adaptive surfer world champion, but to backtrack a little bit, in 1985, he decided to be the happiest guy to ever live life from a wheelchair. So I had a little bit of experience, obviously making documentaries, but also kind of getting into the water and making all that. But we didn't necessarily get in the water for this documentary. It was a lot of archival footage that we were working with. You'll see a lot of original footage that we shot, more just B-roll and visual storytelling based off interviews. But yeah, we've kind of have. And just from being like living at the Jersey Shore, I'm living in Brick and, grew up hanging out in Belmar and Manasquan. So like the beach is very intimate and personal to us. So in one way or another, we had some experience filming at the beach, but this was definitely different than what we were expecting. And yeah.
What was it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to add in, like, having like this kind of footage like handed to us, like, Tim Harmon, who's the lifeguard chief, who's one of the executive producers on the film. he kind of brought the GoPro footage to us originally, and he was showing it to us on his laptop. And the first time we watched it, was like you kind of had to look away a couple times. It was like a little bit, it's a little bit disturbing. We warned people at the beginning of the films, who might have a weaker stomach, but and our editor Nick Binder, he said that he had a hard time like the first 20 times he probably had to watch. I'm sure at this point he's, it's whatever, he's probably watched it 200 times at this point, but it was really interesting having that kind of footage like handed over to us, and had a little bit to deal with on our end of getting through it.
So, I mean, like you're saying, it was pretty disturbing to go through it. What would you say was the most challenging part of this? Was it, having to go through the disturbing footage? And what was your most, maybe like your favorite part of it, or the easiest part of it for you?
For me, I guess my favorite part is also the hardest part, is to get whoever we're interviewing to take us back to that day, because it's not something somebody necessarily wants to relive when we're dealing with somebody who drowns. And between the lifeguards, the family, it's tough to dive back in and reminisce about that. But it's also like my favorite part, because you can tell for a moment, like people forget that the cameras and lights and microphone is on them, and they just kind of start opening up to you. And it's almost like a little therapy session. And at the end of it, they actually thank us, like, thank you for talking to me. Thank you for, let me say this again. So it's it was both. The worst part was also the best part for me.
Yeah, for me, it was sitting through, as the DP of this, I was just doing the cameras and lighting and stuff. But for me, the hardest part was probably interviewing the victim's wife, Frankie Bouchard. She, they were staying just, I guess, across the street at their sister, or at her sister's house. And one of her, I think it was her nephew, had kind of ran up to the house and said, Paul was in an accident or whatever, and so they were kind of right there, so she kind of had to relive it all. And then honestly, I think the next hardest part was seeing her at our we did a little private showing of it all, and so seeing her kind of reacting to the movie was also pretty difficult to see. But I think she appreciates that the story is being told, and that it's kind of hopefully making a difference with lifeguards in the future, just how they respond.
And is that what you're hoping your audience will take away from the film?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main audience for this at the end of the day is lifeguards in training. So this wasn't initially intended, for film festivals or for a general audience. It's really intended for almost an orientation for lifeguards. So we all hope that as lifeguards who are in training watch this, they know how to act when they're on the scene, because there is some panicking that goes on, especially for newer lifeguards. So hopefully this prepares them for that.
Yeah, to kind of go off what Sean was saying here, when Tim Harmon and the Seagirt Beach Patrol approached us, it was to make a training video for them. He says right now, 2 weeks before Memorial Day weekend, when all the young lifeguards come in, he plays a movie for them. It is from the 1980s. It is on a VHS. It is in California. And he wants to let them know that, hey, stuff goes down here at the Jersey Shore. People drown. We lose people every summer. So this isn't just some summer job for some kid, before he goes to college. You have to get certifications, and there's classes, and there's training, and it's the real deal. It's the real deal for them.
I mean, as someone that, was a lifeguard a little bit in and after college, I definitely can relate to what it is that you're saying. And I mean, for our audience members that are not lifeguards, and they're just going to be watching this raw, and what would you like them to take from this film? What would you like them to learn?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I don't want to spoil the theme of it, but I will say one life is so important to people. You may not think at the time that if somebody's watching this that they might feel insignificant or something, but after watching this film, you do realize that one life, it doesn't matter who it is very important. And I think that the lifeguards would take away, and the people in like the health and wellness and medical field will understand the chain of command when it comes to the beach patrol, because they are like the police, they are like the firemen, they are like the EMS. So I guess, for their sake, we are raising awareness on that. Lifeguards are one of those people that like the policemen and the EMS and the fire department. There's a lot of themes to take away. That's, I guess, why we paused for a second, because it's like, which one do you pick? And for me, it's the one life is so important.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the lifeguards are first responders on the beach. So basically, like, it's not the cops were showing up at the same time, just because this incident did happen before the lifeguards were on duty. But yeah, Kevin's absolutely right. And I also want to add to that. There were bystanders who were on the beach who witnessed this all kind of happen. They saw Paul, they saw Paul in the water, and they're the ones who dragged him out initially. And then another woman who was happened to be jogging on the beach, who had some CPR training. She was one of the first people that was kind of there to kind of help. So I hope that anybody who watches this film kind of, they kind of see that courage of these bystanders, and that maybe they can gives them like the courage to act if they ever witness something like this.
I think there's a lot of takeaways.
Yeah.
I'm just adding that there's a lot of takeaways, and I can almost go through like each scene or each minute of the movie and be like, okay, that's a theme. That's a theme. I learned this here. I learned that there. But I would say, just at the end of it, aside from being training purposes, I think it just kind of makes you appreciate Mother Nature, and that it's tough to beat her, and you probably won't. So you have to show some respect. And there's a lot of different themes of the movie.
Well, I guess before we close this out, from both of you, is there something from this project that you think made you a stronger co-producer, director of photography?
For me, absolutely. I think that, when you're trying to, basically, like, my main job is essentially lighting and shooting the interviews. So really trying to match like the mood of those interviews to like what the subject matter is. I think I learned and got better at that. By the time we did the last interviews, I think that everything kind of like almost looks even better. Maybe not like normal viewers be able to see, but for like when I watch this, I can see exactly like how I'm getting better throughout the film.
And I would say, for me, as the person that was interviewing our subjects or our talent, we are spoiled by an awesome editor, Nick. But for me, it was continuity. Almost everybody in certain groups, whether you're a lifeguard or a family or a bystander, or you work for the town or you're an EMS or police officer, there needs to be continuity in the story. So yes, you kind of like need to ask everybody everything. We just need to relay that message and paint a clear story for the editor, Nick, to make it all come together. But we're blessed because Nick is I just tell him go, and he just goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I just have 1 second to like kind of shout out the rest of the crew here, I'll start with Michael. Michael was he was a hire that we had back in 2022. He came in on as just kind of like a production assistant, full time, and he's got his own little style and flair that actually kind of made it into the film, because he's credited as second camera, and we did like a little bit of a recreate scene. It's only like one small segment, but basically the way it's cut is just the way how Michael shoots and the way he film makes himself. So we were kind of like stoked to have that part in there. And then once again, just Nick Binder, he really killed it on this project. He had so much stuff to go through. Like, we did some pretty long interviews with some of these people. Some of these interviews went like 2 hours long, and I don't know, we interviewed 12 or 13 people, I think, total. Yeah. Well, he had a ton of work to do. Especially there's some screen grabs that you'll see throughout the film, and he just went by frame until he found like some of these perfect screen grabs to have, so we could just kind of do a freeze frame for a second to really kind of show like what was going on the scene. So like,
yeah,
those guys.
the first draft Nick sent to us, I was just like, all right, let's see what he's got. It's going to need some work. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And of course, you watch it 1,000 times and you end up nitpicking it. And we could probably still, like, that's the one thing about making a movie. It's like, you've seen it so many times, you almost can't watch it. You're like, I wish I did this, or I wish I did that. But, I love this movie right now. I think it's very powerful, and I think it's going to help lifeguards and, people who aren't lifeguards as well.
Yeah, that first screening, like we were bawling our eyes out. It was definitely emotional for all of us because like when you see the whole story come together and being told from all the different perspectives and stuff, it's pretty wild. And the ending like really punches you in the gut. So I'm almost choking up right now thinking about it.
Me too, man.
Kevin, Sean, thank you guys so much for an amazing interview. You guys, you can check out the documentary short, This Is Why We Train the Seagirt Beach Patrol at our Asbury Lanes on Sunday, March 24th during the 12 p.m. to 1:45 p.m. block. Kevin, Sean, I hope to see you at the Garden State Film Festival this year, where there are 200 films screening across 8 venues, including hosting parties, panels, events, and more. Guys, get your tickets at gsff.org/tickets and check out this documentary to see how the ending goes. Guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I'm your host, Emily DeSimone. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.